Hey there, Dominic St-Pierre. You're listening to Go Podcast. Wanted to talk a little bit today about two things that I've added to my open source project, StaticBackend, lately, and I think that if you have any kind of open source project as well in Go, or in general, this might be good for you to have that. The first thing is it's always difficult to jump into an open source project and set up the development environment. Well, I would say this is a major thing, even when changing jobs or taking a new contract on an existing code base and whatnot. I mean, every time that you need to start developing into something that you did not really initiated, that might do things differently than you're used to, and things like that. It's always a point of friction. So Docker really helped that a long time ago. I mean, it really solved the issues of to start contributing to this project, you will need X, Y, and Z services. You can have that into a Docker container, and you don't really need to install that into your local machine and whatnot. So that really helped. GitHub went one step further with their GitHub Codespaces, I must admit. I've seen that, I think it was like 1 year or 1.5 years ago. And to be frank, I was not sure what to think about that at that time. And for StaticBackend, I decided to implement, or at least to create a famous dev-container.json file, which allows someone from GitHub to very quickly open a code editor with everything that they would need to contribute to your project and be up and running, in basically 30 seconds or, something like that. So it really removed this last piece of friction of having to understand how you need to set up things, how, what exactly you will need, or, there might be some developers that don't have Docker, or I don't know. I mean, but not only that, so while setting this GitHub Codespaces, I grew to be a fan of it, to be frank. And don't get me wrong, I mean, I've been running Linux since like forever, and I'm now on Windows due to accessibility reasons. So people that listen to this podcast might know that I am a blind person, and so lately I needed to get more accessibility feature that Linux is not good at, to be frank, at the moment. So things like screen reader and whatnot, it's very, very difficult on Linux. Not impossible, but was not really working for me. Anyways, so suffice to say that after a couple of hours playing with this thing, I decided to test it. I first installed the GitHub CLI. So it's it might be a little bit shameful, but I did not really use their CLI yet. And now, wow, I am a huge CLI person, so I've, again, returning to my visual disabilities, to me it's very easier to do things on the command line than using any kind of GUI. So And I don't know. I don't know exactly why I was not using their CLI. To be completely frank, I'm not sure I have seen much people using that or talked about it. So until the Codespaces, from 1 year ago. So anyways, so suffice to say that now I installed the CLI, and after creating a simple devcontainer.json, so devcontainer.json is just a file that tells Codespaces what you will need on a VM for your project to run, correctly. Do you need a specific version of Go? Do you need any kind of node version? Do you need to install anything? Do you need Python? Whatever. Do you need some containers, because there's by default there's Docker installed there and things like that. So StaticBackend is a backend API that tries to offer the common building block that a typical web application needs. For instance, user management, authentication, the database, CRUD and query operation, WebSocket, everything that is common to most web application. So I was tired of rewriting those things over and over again on all the SaaS that I built. So in 2019, I decided to create a backend API that I would be able to reuse and build other projects on top of that. So this is basically what it is. And it handles Postgres, MongoDB, and now SQLite as well. There's an in-memory data provider as well. So it's used, there's a pub/sub mechanism, a way to publish and subscribe to topic, to build event-based workflow and whatnot. So it's using Redis for that. So the Codespaces just automatically open those or create those 3 containers, if you will, via a Docker Compose. So it will make sure that the developer have Postgres, Mongo, and Redis ready to go in, without them having to do anything. So as soon as this thing opens, everything is there. They could basically make tests and be able to run the test, because that's something else. It might not be everyone that have Make available, and I'm a huge user of Make. I do all my things in Go, at least in Make, but what this open source project made me realize is that it's not everyone that is using Linux and is using the terminal and is using Make, even though they are Go developers and whatnot. So yes, I think GitHub Codespaces, is great for that. It's great for removing this first point of friction, because when you are starting to want to contribute on something, you want to run the test, you want to play with the code and run the test, and just don't really care about how to set up the development environment. It's not really what you want to do, especially if you are using this thing. Let's say it's a library. You want to fix a bug or implement a new feature. You don't really want to learn how to specifically set up this for development. You just want to fix that and push PR. So the GitHub CLI allows you to connect via SSH to this instance. So there's 2 things to that. First, everything that I've said, that it's easier for contributors to just get started. So that I understood that from the Codespaces point of view. While setting everything myself, I realized that even for me, and even for me, this thing is very appealing. So let me explain that a little bit. So what I discovered is that I could easily create Codespaces inside a branch, for example, and this thing is completely isolated, very very quick to be up. I can SSH into this VM, and I also have a public URL to so you can have a port forwarding to your Go server, for example, and you have a public URL that you can you can query to test a couple of things. So not every of those things you can do that easily on your machine, but having switched development machine recently, I kind of saw the benefits of me. Let's say, well, I'm a huge road trip person with my family, my wife, and I could see myself having a super cheap, a super cheap computer without anything on it. You just need basically a terminal and a code editor, and you could leverage or fix a bug while you are on vacation without having to I don't know. I mean, it's good. It's good enough that and the GitHub is offering 120 hours per month, which is for one project at the moment for me is more than enough. I'm not using that every day. I'm using that, to be frank, to run my test, especially now that I'm on Windows. So with WSL, Docker is just a pain. I mean, I tried Podman as well, and it worked for a couple of weeks. Now it's not working anymore. I don't know. I mean, I really miss my my Debian Linux, to be completely frank. But yeah, I mean, GitHub Codespaces is very appealing for me, and I'm not feeling bad to say that at all. It's just a good product. It's a great thing. They did that really correctly, in my opinion. Coupled with the CLI, it's cool. So you can create this VM. You can stop it, delete it from the command line. It's just quick and great. So that's enough about that. So the second thing is really the Golang CI -lint linters. So it's something that you can add to your GitHub action, and it will lint your project with multiple linters. And like I was saying, StaticBackend is a 2019 code base, and to be completely frank, I've never really ran any linter or linters, and even the one that I do have with the VS Code and the Go extension, sometimes it's hard for me to notice what the code editor is trying to tell me. Might be different for you, of course. This is again related to my visual disabilities, but sometimes for all the printf and things like that, when you're not using the right, let's say you're using a %d for a string, then your code editor is normally showing you that, and it's hard for me. It's not working for me. So, but other than that, more interestingly, I think having these linters on the GitHub action now runs every time that a contributors or create a pull request and whatnot. So it will ensure the code quality of the project. I think a great deal. And it made me notice that I was doing things that were not really idiomatic, but in my head, because I was doing them since almost 10 years now. I mean, they were just the norm in my opinion. But I changed a couple of things. Things like checking for a string into another string. I was not using the string that contains. I was using the strings that index. I don't know why. I mean, it was just like that. Another example is, a Boolean check in an if condition. If I were checking for false, I was not using the exclamation point. So I was not using if not XYZ. I was using if XYZ equal false. To me, again, removing symbols help with my readability. So it's probably not, common for the majority of Go developers. So I mean, I'm changing those things, and I really like that. To be frank, StaticBackend is at a point now where it's not really about adding multiple features, but more like making the documentation and the code quality as high as possible, and making it easier to get started with this. So yes, I encourage you to check that if you the Codespaces and this linters for GitHub Actions. I mean, if you want to check StaticBackend as well, if you want to give any feedback, it would be extremely appreciated. I'm always looking for contributors. It's a good time to join. The version 1.5 is about to be released very soon. And if you want to see the GitHub Actions, then you can go to github.com/staticbackendhq/core, and you can check the .github workflows directory there. So yes, again, take care.